Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Thursday, March 17th, 2022. This is the Education Subcommittee of the House Ways and Means Committee. We have several bills in front of us today that we're going to get started on. First House bill is House Bill 23, in which this committee has discussed in the past. We do have some amendments. Alistair, you want to tell us what the amendments do for this bill?
Yes, sir. So as this bill came in, it touched on two different bills that we passed last year, one on disaggregation of data for student disciplinary actions and one on school resource officers. And the amendments remove the piece about school resource officers. So this is just a bill on student data disaggregation. Additionally, because the State Department of Education has changed the risk ratio threshold under the IDEA from 3 to 2. Instead of requiring them to switch from 3 to 2, it now requires that they just maintain a risk ratio of 2 going forward.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Questions?
Is this essentially the same piece of legislation that we just passed out for the Montgomery County delegation?
Kind of similar.
Similar.
This only pertains to disciplinary data, but yes, there's a lot of overlap there.
Okay.
Yeah, and Alistair, part of the amendment strikes out school resource officer because it has nothing to do with that, right?
That's right. So this bill no longer has anything to do with school resource officers if this amendment is adopted.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions on the amendments? Delegate Hartman.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks for clarifying the school resource officer. I had that as a question. And then, so I was reading where it's like, if data is high for a certain amount of suspensions for a particular school, whatever, what happens with that information? I mean, are we saying if discipline's high somewhere, then it's the principal's fault? I mean, or is it not? You know what I mean? Maybe there's just a challenging group there this year or something. You know what I'm saying? What are we trying to do with that information?
Right, Alistair, do you want to see about
Yeah, I think the goal is to make informed decisions going forward so that there's nothing mandated in this legislation as it comes to us. But I think the idea would be so that everyone is aware of the problem and they're able to address it in the future. So I think right now it's just not even known for people if there is a disproportionate disciplinary effect going on in schools. So I think that once the data is collected, you guys, MSDE, the school boards, the schools themselves could work to ameliorate any problems.
And right now, Delegate Hartman, the data, all of this is just dropping data, and then all the advocates have to like figure it out what this means and what this means and disaggregate it themselves. We're asking MSDE to disaggregate the data.
So should we be concerned if we're collecting data on schools as far as the disciplinary action taken? It may cause an administration to sway their behavior and maybe not discipline where needed and so forth, and further hinder the learning environment?
No, they're already collecting the data, Delegate Hartman. So that data has already been collected. What we're asking for is that the data is just disaggregated by categories so that it's understandable and so that we know what's happening in the school and to be able to read from it and say, hey, then this might give a local school the ability to say, okay, hey guys, like we're disproportionately suspending women, and we need to figure out like what can we do to curb suspensions in this area for nonviolent suspensions? What can we do to help that community? What can we do to what solutions are there to drive down these numbers? What resources can we provide to students that they might need if necessary? So it's those types of things that this bill aims to collect so that we're able to understand why things are happening in the school.
So the collection of data, is that something that will always happen, or is there a bill that mandates it right now for a certain number of years?
It's already been mandated that they have to collect the data. This is just
right, but I'm saying, will it be collected in perpetuity, or is there a sunset to it?
No. This bill has nothing to do with that. This bill, the data's already been collected. This just says we want to break the data down. That's
okay, very good. Thank you.
You got it.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move the amendments.
Cool. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You opposed, Delegate Hartman?
The amendment or the bill?
The amendment.
The amendment, I'm good with the amendment. Thank you. Sorry. I got 6 things going on here at once. Sorry.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, on the bill as amended, do I hear a
I'd
motion?
like to move favorable.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Delegate Hartman is opposed. Great. Thank you. HB 23 passes. We'll move on to House Bill 147. This is a bill that was sent over to us. It's jointly assigned right now. It's assigned to ENT. ENT sent it over to us with in a position that it should not be in. Alistair, we have some amendments to make changes, and we can send it back to ENT, right?
Yes, so ENT, so as it came to us initially, before the amendments, this bill was, it did various things to increase local agriculture, including giving more additional money for SNAP, WIC, and FMNP to be spent at farmers markets, which is a currently existing program. It increased the funding from 100,000 to 300,000 for that program. It also created a new fund to fund agriculture resiliency at $1.25 million a year, and created a fund for local schools that participate in the free lunch program to provide additional funding to purchase locally sourced agriculture. The amendments we have, however, lower the amount for participation in the food bank charitable program, the second program I talked about, from $1.25 million to $200,000, and they eliminate the money going to the schools who participate in the free lunch program. So in its current posture, it would not, there would be a fund created for that program, and it would be up to the governor to fund it, but there would be no mandatory appropriation for it.
Any questions, Delegate Eversole?
Yeah, the version that you sent us has got amendments. Are they our amendments, or are they the amendments that were sent to us?
They were sent to us by ENT.
Okay. So the form
with
the
some
form it's in is what,
consultation with our committee members.
so the form it's in.
I'm sorry, I didn't. Hold on one second, Alistair. So these are amendments that we need to add to improve the bill. Is that right?
Yes, these are amendments. Initially, ENT sent it to us without these amendments, and they revoted with these amendments and have sent it back to us. So after some consultation between our two committees, these are amendments that ENT has adopted.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move the amendments.
Well, hold on one second. Delegate Eversole, did you ever follow up?
Yeah, it's not very controversial. I'm just curious what I'm looking at. I think you explained it. I want to just clarify. I'm looking at a sort of agreed upon set of amendments between us and ENT at this point. Okay, thank you.
Got it.
That's
okay.
all.
Got it. Okay. Yes. Delegate Plavovich-Gar.
Thank you. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Similar question as what Delegate Eversole just asked. So, okay, so Alistair, can you just say again with the school lunch program, so now there's no longer any funding included for that now?
There's no funding for it, but the fund will exist, so it will be a thing that can be funded. The governor could include funds for it, but it's just not a mandatory appropriation anymore.
And so then what is the bill mandating funding for?
It's mandating increased funding for allowing SNAP, WIC, and FMNP to be used at farmers markets. It's also creating the Maryland Food Agriculture Resiliency Grant Program to provide funds for food banks to have local agriculture. So that piece is still there, but it's been reduced from $1.25 million to $200,000 for that fund.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Delegate Guyton.
Thank you. Thanks so much. So there is nothing that actually relates to the farm to school meal grant program in here at all anymore?
It's still creating a fund for it and still specifying
But
what
it's
that
not-
fund can be used for. It's just not mandating that there's an appropriation for that fund.
I guess I'm a little confused about that. And what do we think, or do we have any promises that any money is going into that? Like what do we think is going to happen with that fund?
I think it's going to be up to future legislators and the governor to decide whether it's appropriate to fund that thing. I think it's not uncommon that funds are created in this manner, and that to give sort of a suggestion of, we like this program and we would like to see some money appropriated for it, and that is what it would do, I think. So the program would still exist, and it would still be an endorsement of use in that way, but not a required budget mandate.
Thank you, Alistair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you mind if I ask, and I assume the question is no, I don't suppose that we have any leeway at all to fund this in any way at this point, and while working with ENT?
I'd like to be our lead negotiator, Delegate Guyton, with ENT.
I've got a lot of constituents who care a lot about food insecure kids, so it is a little problematic. But if it's a done deal and this is the way that we get this passed, then I totally understand. I just don't know if all the negotiations are finished. So that's my question.
Yeah, I think what I heard from the sponsor of the bill is that she understands where we are right now, and she's been working at it. I think we all know her, and and she has contacted me several times. We've been working together to try to figure it out. But if you want to hold it to take another bite of the apple, we can do that too.
Oops, I'm sorry. If the sponsor is all right with where it is, then I suppose I am as well.
I think we're all set, Delegate Guyton. Delegate Jones.
Some of my comments and questions were just covered by Delegate Guyton, and Alistair then spoke to them. Obviously, I have a lot of concerns, just the same thing. I have food insecure kids, just want to make sure on the school situation. So sorry, I'm not going to repeat myself. Thank you, Delegate Guyton. Thank you, Alistair. Thank you, Chairman.
So I hear Delegate Jones, I hear Delegate Guyton, I think Delegate Bopper's car. I think you said something too about this. So you're all kind of in agreement that we need to fund this. Is that right? Delegate Blagojevich Carr.
Well, I mean, yes, but on the other hand, I mean, we're at the point of session of half a loaf's better than no loaf. So if the sponsors signed off, I'm okay. Disappointed, but okay. And that's not disappointment at you.
I get it. I'm on your side, man.
No, I know. I'm going to make that clear.
Yeah. Delegate Ebersol.
Yeah, and I'm not disappointed either.
Well, maybe a little.
Maybe, well, Alistair, can you just go over what's mandated and what's not again? I heard you go through it really quickly. What's in here that's mandated, and what's in here that we're just encouraging the fund to be funded for?
Yes, so this bill creates 3 different programs, it amends a current program which allows recipients of various support programs, SNAP, WIC, and FMNP to participate in farmers markets. That's a current program. It's currently funded at $100,000 a year. This increases it to $300,000 a year.
Not immediately, right? After a couple of years.
In fiscal year 2024. So the next available fiscal year that we could mandate any appropriation.
Thank you.
The second thing it does is create the agricultural resiliency mechanism, which gives funding for food banks to have locally sourced food. And there's still a ongoing fund for that. But instead of, the bill came in at $1.25 million for that, and it is now $200,000.
That's mandated also, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Both of those things are traditionally not areas that the Ways and Means Committee legislates in.
Yeah.
So I would recommend maybe deferring to ENT on that. The third thing is it creates the Farm to School Meal Grant Program, which can use money for participating schools in the free student lunch program to have locally sourced food. So there's a bunch of language laying out how that would work, but there's not a mandated appropriation for that program anymore.
Thank
Alistair,
you.
what was the appropriation that ENT sent it over in initially?
Initially, it was $500,000
For farm to school?
for farm to school.
Alistair, how much is the, do you remember how much of a surplus the state has right now?
I don't, unfortunately, I'm sorry.
Oh, what, 6 billion? Okay. All right, on the amendments, do I hear a motion on the amendments?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? On the bill as amended.
Move favorable.
Second.
So probably moved in second. I see a question from Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Farm Bureau supported this bill, correct?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes, they did. Yep. You supported Delegate Hartman? On the bill as amended, any other discussion? Delegate Guyton, I saw you raise your hand. You
Sorry,
can't-
I'm on multiple devices. I apologize, Mr. Chair. So I did just get the information that the Senate did fund it all, so there may still be some negotiation at some point. So, thank you.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
great
you.
to hear. Man,
Okay.
who would have thought the Senate would do something good?
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
we wouldn't, right? On the bill as amended, all those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed. HB 147 passes. Thank you, everybody. House Bill 433, we haven't discussed this bill. This is a local Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners bill. Alistair, you want to tell us what this bill does and what's the amendments, please?
Yes, absolutely. So this is a local bill that the delegation approved of. As it came in, it would have added a second student member to the Baltimore City Board of Education. It also provided for the election of that student member. Specifically, each school would elect representatives to serve in sort of like Congress thing, in which they would then elect from nominated names, particular members, 4 members, 2 of which who would be the main 2 members on the school board and 2 would be alternates. It's very detailed and probably too detailed. The delegation adopted an amendment which changed that and just changed the removed the second student member, removed the specifics of the election, and just said that it will be an election run by high schools and middle schools, which is similar to what other county boards of education do.
The delegation sent in a letter of support for this amendment, just so
Yes.
everybody knows.
Yes.
Any questions on the amendments? Seeing none.
I
Yes,
move the
Dele-
city's amendments.
Second.
So probably moved and seconded. Question, Delegate Hartman.
The I'm trying to follow you guys, and it's on my list. Is this something that was added after the original list, or?
It could have been.
Yes,
It's
it
House Bill-
was.
It's House Bill
sorry.
433, Delegate. This is a local Baltimore City bill. It's dealing with the student board member and a task force to study the compensation of the board and how the student board member is elected.
And the scholarship for the student member, was that part of it?
That's part of the what they're going to study, the task force.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mention that part.
Sounds similar to a Prince George County bill. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
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 All opposed. On the bill as amended.
Move favorable.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of this local bill, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Perfect. House Bill 433 passes. We have House Bill 472 in front of us. It's a primary and secondary education. This is the bill that we discussed yesterday. There were some questions about an amendment to it, to add to it. We already discussed the actual amendment to it. That would just make it a notification requirement for the school system of the coordinator within that school. Alistair, what's the new amendment?
Yeah, so we received some language from some of the advocates to, in addition to providing students, faculty, staff, and parents with notice about who the Title IX coordinator is and the process for placing in place for filing a sexual misconduct complaint, that there would also be notice about the support measures in place for when you file a misconduct complaint and how to access them.
Got it. Cool. Okay. Any questions on that amendment?
I'd like to move the amendment.
Perfect. Okay.
Second.
Second.
Can we move the amendments, like all of them at once?
I'd like to move all of the amendments at once.
Second.
Awesome. There's probably moving a seconded discussion, questions, Delegate Eversole.
Yeah, so it strikes everything except for the last section, right? Is that what I'm?
Right. Yeah. Is that cool with you, Delegate Eversole?
Doesn't matter really. I need to.
On the amendments, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. On the bill as amended, do I hear
Favorable.
Do I hear second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Great. Bipartisan. HB 472 passes. We have another bill, House Bill 657 in front of us. This is Delegate Guyton's bill, in which we discussed, I believe it was last week, right? And is dealing with behavioral health. It's not quizzes. What is it called? What are we calling it now?
Questionnaires.
Questionnaires. Thank you. Health questionnaires. And we had some amendments to it that changed all that. Is there anything else that changed since we last talked, Alistair?
So I think this bill's been discussed in various forms. I think the amendments that the sponsors suggested were to remove the questionnaire piece and to remove some of the people who serve on the advisory board of the consortium who's going to develop the questionnaire piece. In addition, in response to some commentary that we had last time, because I think there was some confusion about what the purpose of this questionnaire was, I also added just some explanatory language that this questionnaire would help the behavioral health support person in each county to carry out their duties, which is the purpose of having a behavioral health questionnaire, I believe. So other than that, I think it's in the posture that was discussed previously. And I'm sorry, I don't have a written amendment before you, but that is what the amendment would do.
Say that one more time, Alistair.
I'm sorry, I was just saying I don't have a written amendment in front of you. I think I don't think Sam sent it out, but that is what the amendment you're discussing would do. I think is just change it to questionnaire, strike one of the members that, as Delegate Guyton suggested in her sponsor amendment, and clarify the purpose of the questionnaire.
Okay, discussion, Delegate Eversole.
Thanks. So one of the questions I had, and I don't have it in front of me, so I'm going to ask you to go back over it again, is that once we do this questionnaire and they get entered into a computer or people answer them online, you have only charged the county behavioral health specialist or whatever they're called. That's the only person that really has to worry about what happens with them. So it would be up to them then to get somebody at the building level, and but we didn't write any of that in, right?
Well, that's their duty under current law. In the blueprint is to be the person. The behavioral health specialist is the person in the county whose job it is to make sure that students are provided with the adequate behavioral health services that they need. So
Okay.
This questionnaire would be a means for them to know, what direction do I go, who do I talk to, and so forth.
But it wouldn't be to gather general data. It would be data on specific students that they might highlight, right?
Sorry, that's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Delegate Ivy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate Guyton, are you in support of these amendments?
Thank you so much, Delegate Ivy, Mr. Chair. I am. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move favorable on the amendment.
Yeah, sure. I just have one quick question before we do that, if you don't mind. Alistair, I thought we also talked about making sure that once the school receives these, each layer will then be able to assess it and provide it. Delegate Eversole just asked that question. Assess
Sort of,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's in this amendment.
So as it's written, the amendment would just, the questionnaire would just go to the behavioral health specialist for them to do their job in interacting with, their job involves interacting with a lot of local, like the Departments of Local Health and the schools, and it would just be a means for them to use it. It's not required that it's any content of it or report to the school or anything like that, or to the consortium. If that's something you guys would like to see happen, I could alter the amendment so that is part of it. But I believe the original intent in the blueprint and by the sponsor was just to give the behavioral health specialist the information they need to do their job.
Yeah, I thought we talked about it being both layers, like it being the county behavior specialist, and then also like
Also go to the consortium?
Or whomever the statewide, if it is the consortium, I'm sure. Yeah.
The consortium gives out grants for local schools, so I think it might make sense for them to have this information.
Okay. I think.
Okay.
Delegate Eversole.
So, and I guess too, I thought we discussed about maybe being more specific about who might look at this at the school level, because there could be tens of thousands of these in front of a county level administrator. I suppose that they would have the power to pick out who looks at it, but we really wouldn't know what would happen to them after they had a file of 8,000-10,000 of these to have in front of them. So I'm always big on you gather data. I think we had this question on something just a moment ago too, on something else. Will it actually be used in a way that can be helpful?
Yeah,
so
I mean,
I was looking for something like that.
I don't think it's designed really for the schools themselves. It's designed for this person to use to help the schools and help other resources in the county to help the students. So
it's for a larger data gather rather than to pick up students in particular who might be having difficulty because of the way the questionnaire indicates a problem they might be having.
No, it's for the behavioral health specialist to help the students with their behavioral health needs.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that. If we don't specify how it's going to be used, if it's just one person in the county, I think it's highly likely that they'll look at the data in aggregate rather than in an individualistic way. And I was hoping that I do remember saying, school nurse or school psychologist or somebody, maybe it passes to them. I don't really know who the right person is, but we got a core dump of data there in front of somebody. So I was trying to figure out what we're going to do with it. If we're just looking for a trend and they want that information, then they can do that. They can look through and see, but I don't believe from a county office, somebody's going to be able to identify students unless they have a contact.
Are you coughing, Delegate Eversole? You okay?
No, it's one of the
I'm all right. Thank you for asking though, Mr.
Chair. Okay, Delegate Eversole, it seems like you have another question on this bill, or what do you?
No, I guess I was hopeful that the amendment would have some of that in there, and I didn't hear it. I wasn't going to bring it up again, but you also had a concern going the other direction, that information kind of flow in both directions from this office.
Okay, Alistair, can we write that up then?
Yeah. So the information is shared with relevant people in the school, including school social workers, school psychologists, so on, and also with the consortium for purposes of providing grants. Is that an accurate description of the concept?
Delegate Eversole?
Yeah, and I think so. I think maybe with your permission, we should let sponsor weigh in on who she thinks.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next thing, man.
Great,
You're
excellent.
like subcommittee chair over here, man.
I was just a lowly member making a suggestion. That's all I am.
Terrible, man. Delegate Guyton, you want to tell us how you feel about that Eversole amendment?
I have not really thought about that specifically. We were just trying to work within the framework that the blueprint had already set up and within the framework that the counties already have in place. I mean, I'm fine with it, however you want to go about it, but I think there is, basically it's the school nurses we heard that are doing this work now. If you want to put that in statute, that's fine too.
Yeah, I think providing some guidance would be helpful, and express our intent of what we want to have used for. And I appreciate your grace and understanding, Delegate Guyton, with Delegate Ebersol, his amendment. So can we write that up, and then can we just, because we're going to meet again tomorrow, can we then write it up and then have it ready for tomorrow, Alistair?
Absolutely, sir.
Cool. And then make sure then we can share with Delegate Guyton to make sure it's good for both concerns. Cool. All right, cool. So we'll move on to House Bill 752. We haven't discussed this bill in the subcommittee yet. This is a bill we considered last year, though. Delegate Alice, you want to tell us what this bill does?
Yes, absolutely. So this bill creates a recruitment program for school psychologists. It basically provides compensation to get professional development for those psychologists, including 100 school psychologists every year will pay the cost of getting a credential from the National Association of School Psychologists. There is an amendment that I could discuss if you would like. So the amendment, which was suggested by the Anne Arundel County Public School System, would seek to include more diversity in the profession of school psychologists. So similar to what we just did on HB 512, it would try to help the program would support people who've been historically underrepresented in the school professional personnel, excuse me.
Awesome, that sounds great. Any questions on the amendments? Any motion on the amendments?
I'd like to move them favorably.
Or second.
I love this subcommittee. Any discussion on, it's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions on the amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All opposed?
Aye.
On the bill as amended. There's a motion to favorably.
Move favorable, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Second.
So properly moved and seconded. In the favorable, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Perfect. House Bill 752 passes. Members of the committee, we're going to go to House Bill 1163. This is our favorite virtual education bill that we worked on last year for about 6 weeks. It's in the exact same posture that we passed it out last year. Nothing has changed except the date on the bill, but there are some amendments to remove some of the pilot programs due to the funding with those pilot programs. Alistair, is that accurate?
Yeah, it actually just removes the Flip the Classroom pilot program, the pilot program in place to provide virtual education courses for under-demanded courses that have demand in the county is still in the bill.
So, it's interesting. So we're not moving all the pilot programs, we're just moving one.
That is the amendment before you.
Thank you. Questions on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of removing the Flip the Classroom from pilot program from this bill, say aye. Oh, do I hear a motion and a second on the bill?
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, can I ask a quick question?
Is it properly moved? Is it properly moved and seconded? Questions, Delegate Ebersol.
Sorry, I wanted to catch it.
Okay.
So we've removed it from being a pilot program, or we removed it as a pilot program?
So it was never established beyond a pilot program, so it's just removed entirely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it removes it completely from the bill. So. All right, any other discussion? Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So with the virtual learning, does this ban any private entities? It does do that.
Yeah, it bans them from establishing public virtual schools. I think it's fair to say.
Private virtual schools.
Private virtual, if you are, it only pertains to the approval of, yeah, I think, yes, that's fair to say. I'm sorry for my.
So let me help you with the situation on Eastern Shore to, because we're smaller counties and so forth, minimal number of students, those opting to go virtual, there's a consortium through a private enterprise. That would, if this would pass, that would ban that.
And no, it ban going forward. So it doesn't ban it permanently. It's just a 2-year moratorium until there's a deep data dive on how virtual schooling has gone during the COVID-19 pandemic, and counties adopt particular plans to address the issues that are found under that study.
So it's just a grace period to give folks some time to be able to review it and figure out what the best practices are, so that eventually we can have a set of standards for what a virtual school would look like.
But those standards would be
a virtual public school will look like.
Right, but not private. Okay.
But not private, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, and it doesn't go back retroactively to ban schools that are currently exist either.
Sure, but I understand, but the intent of this would be after that study to have all public virtual schools.
Not all, but
To allow them.
to allow them for them to be and set standards for it. Right now, there's very minimal standards on what virtual schools would look like.
So nothing personal, but this is a little too close for comfort, and my school boards would probably crucify me if I supported this, with knowing that could become a possibility. Again, understand how small we are. I mean, some of the populations in other counties grew to the size that we are, so we're very small counties, and so nothing personal, but I won't be able to support it. So thank you.
I totally understand. On the bill on the amendments, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. On the bill as amended, do I hear a motion?
Move
So moved.
favorable. Second.
It's been probably moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Delegate Hartman, thank you. Okay, House Bill 1163 passes with amendments. Next, the clerk will read the next bill. Our last bill today, everybody, is House Bill 1327. This is Delegate Bendari bill. We passed this bill I believe about 2 years ago, and it seems like the Senate is not willing to move this bill, but we're going to move it today. And in hopes that they change their mind. Maybe Delegate Bendari can do some magic. Alistair, any amendments on this bill?
There are no amendments, sir.
Cool. Any
Move
discussion?
favorable, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been probably moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Perfect. Okay, thanks, guys. Before you guys leave, can we just thank you, everybody. Have a